humility is perhaps the secret weapon that we're all looking for to build the foundation of operationalizing and weaponizing yourself as a person. Then the tool you use to deploy that can change into anything, because it's really just an extension of you. When you exist in the realm I get to be a part of, small team environment where you are literally relying on each other for your survival over and over and over again in all different places in the world, within different operational environments, with different threats. And that's just the way you live. It's you and 10 or 11 other guys, and that's it.
Well, thanks, Nick. Thanks so much for joining us this Monday morning from Boston.
Thanks for having me. I'm actually in Tennessee, but I appreciate the time, and the opportunity. Looking forward to having a cool discussion.
Well, I have to say before you start, when they ask you, who would you want to have dinner with? And it can be anybody, a historical figure, people that are alive or dead. You would be one of them. I think the first person would be like Cleopatra or Nikola Tesla, but you're definitely in there, Nick. So this is a huge honor. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate that and excited. I want to start with your book. So I actually reviewed this book in one of my solos, and this is a life-changing book, I think.
Thank you.
And I want to say how I got this book. This book was a gift from a very special person in my life. And I think at the time I was sort of complaining. I didn't have enough focus or discipline, I think, in my life to really kind of think or achieve what I wanted. And this book, to me, is also such a gesture, It's from somebody who cares about me, but also I feel like it's about achieving your goals. And it's in the subtitle, I guess, The Battle-Tested Guide to Goal Achievement. So that's how I was introduced to you, Nick.
Very cool.
And I think your book really resonates with me, even though I might not be a part of your demographic. I'm not a bro, although inside maybe I am. But I think it's, my podcast is about creativity and how we're all creative in different ways. And I think that a lot of times you have to have this type of resiliency to really bring your vision to life. So I don't know if you want to comment on that. That was like a monologue.
Yeah, well, first off, Bronca, I appreciate it. And whoever that special person in your life, I appreciate them as well. It's wild. Never in a million years would I have thought I'd be even on this podcast, talking to you, and certainly not have ever written a book or running a business. These things are just so far outside of what I thought I would be doing with my life. And, I came into the military and all I wanted to do was be a special operator, and that's it. And I would have been more than fine with that being really all I did professionally. And, after that, whatever I would do beyond in the professional realm would be whatever, so it's just life gets interesting, and you start taking these turns and these pivots. But it's just incredibly humbling. And it's an honor to just be able to connect with someone who you've somewhat enabled, even in perhaps just a very small degree. And it's gestures like that you just gave me that really gives me some validation to why I decided to do that project. And I can tell you, when you come in from the world of special operations, we live this quiet professional mentality where we're kind of the behind the scenes people. And to go kind of against that grain and be very forward facing and in the public and putting yourself out there is an interesting paradigm for us, because most of us live kind of this mystique in the shadows, and that's the opposite of that. So I really struggled with that when I decided to write the book and kind of get more out there in the public. And it's something I still struggle with today. Am I violating this code that I signed up for? And it's an interesting kind of almost cognitive dissonance that I still struggle with in this moment I'm having with you right now. So a long-winded way of saying, when I get some kind of appreciation like that or feedback like that from somebody, it only just further verifies for me that no, you're doing things for the right reason, and it is helping people. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
I love that. I kind of think that it is a part of the code. I was going to say I feel like in some ways you're a thought leader. And what I want to say is that, I mean, your military ethos is, I think, applicable to many others, you know, like including a woman in LA, you know, doing architecture, design, you know. I feel like we all kind of go through some of these struggles. It's just a part of life, you know. And I think some of these themes are timeless. When I was reading your book, I really appreciated the tone in which it was written. It is very practical, and I'm very practical. So I think it's like you also give like step-by-step things that people can do to train better. And I actually started following you on Instagram, and I love the sort of fitness aspect of it as well. But to get a little deeper, I feel like a lot of your sort of Stoic philosophy is like, it's like you're the modern day Marcus Aurelius. Like that's how I felt reading it, because Marcus Aurelius was also very practical and kind of based in reality, you know, and he's a military leader and an emperor and a great one at that. And I feel like we all need that type of guidance. You know, those are the people that we should look up to, like you and Marcus Aurelius, and, you know, people who are really out there changing things, people who are brave, all of these things. So that's what I'm getting out of it.
Yeah, and I'm glad you bring up that reference. I mean, Meditations to me, which is Marcus Aurelius, probably his most well-known work, is a huge inspiration for me to this day. I referenced that while I was writing Objective Secure. I reference it today. I mean, even if I'm just, you know, putting together a piece of content, I'm like, let me feed my soul, let me feed my mind a little bit, and I'll use that as an enduring reference. And what I love you mentioned is that work is timeless, and there's a reason for that, and it's because we're human beings, and we can continue and will continue to advance in technologies and evolution and what we can do physically and mentally and technologically and do things more efficiently and faster, and, you know, all these things will continue to go forward. We can fight that kicking and screaming, and all of a sudden we very quickly become kind of like the old crusty guy yelling at the kids to get off his or her lawn. Right. But like that, that's not stopping. In fact, it's only going to speed up, which is exciting and scary at the same time. But these underlying themes within humanity, as it pertains to happiness and success and winning and progress, and being a good person and being a selfless servant to others, like these themes aren't going away, which is where I tend to spend most of my time when I am focused on myself and or my family and or our clients. It's like these non-negotiable themes, whether you are a special operator that's going into a combat environment or you're an architect in LA, like success and progress are all relatively rooted in the same exact themes. Yeah. It's just how you're deploying them can certainly change, whether you're wielding a rifle or a keyboard or a pen. So that stuff certainly changed, but those underlying themes aren't going away. And so I think that by focusing on those as to build the foundation of operationalizing and weaponizing yourself as a person, then the tool you use to deploy that can change into anything, because it's really just an extension of you. The focus is on you, right? Branka, like you are the weapon. You are the asset. How we deploy that into the world can change however you choose it to change. But without that, then I think you're set up for failure from the very beginning.
Yeah, and back to the tone of your book, I really like, even now, I feel like I'm getting a motivational speech, which I love. I love, first of all, I love being mentored and learning and all these things. But I love in several of your chapters, I think you end them with just like, let's go. There's a definite call to action. Like you can philosophize all you want, but then you have to apply it too.
Yeah, and that's unfortunately a step too far for many, many people. And we can think theoretically and conceptually and strategically and kind of have these like visions and be a visionary and kind of let that creative flow unfold onto a whiteboard or a little yellow sticky note or some fancy, PowerPoint presentation. But unfortunately, most of it ends there for most people. I mean, some are then willing to actually go to work and begin grinding, getting their hands dirty or calloused and digging in and feeling the physical and emotional and mental discomfort that comes with action. But that's the few. So, I mean, even the few that are willing to take that initial step, you're already wildly in the minority compared to the rest of the world. There are literally billions of potentially world-changing ideas that are created every single day. Billions, like limitless. It's just, are you willing to take that first step, knowing it's hard, knowing you're going to assume some kind of a risk, knowing or unknowingly you're going to get your ass kicked and you're going to get it wrong over and over and over and over again. But even just that first step, unfortunately, is a bridge too far for most. And then certainly for those that are willing to stay in the game and keep taking those shots to the face and keep messing it up and just stay committed to the process and being adaptable and flexible and pivoting and remaining humble and continuing to be a student of the game. Now you're really talking about a very small niche. But the truth is while it is really hard, it's also quite simple. And I think we tend to overcomplicate things to an enormous degree, where it's not easy, but it is simple.
And it's achievable, like objective secure. I want to say, I while you were talking, I kind of thought of Jordan Peterson. And I think that there's something about all of us kind of embracing that part of us that can kind of change the world at whatever scale. I don't know if you want to mention anything about that or talk about that.
Well, I agree with that, 100%. And to use it in the framework of business, which is really just maybe a simple analogy to life, is, those that tend to quote make it, which we can argue on what that actually means, how that's defined to an individual, like what does success even mean? But I would say most that do are the ones that go big. They're the ones, like the cliche, like aim for the stars, you land on the moon, or like whatever, but like go big. And I think many of us in business or in life tend to set the bar for us relatively low, because we don't want to overextend, or the thought of failure is too great, or the fear of success is too high. So if I make it, like, then what? And so I'll just kind of keep things nice and practical and have expectation management. And you likely leaving a lot of value and potential on the table that's untapped. So I do think that why not go big? Like this game of life that you and I get to play literally right now, it's going to end. And we know that. There are very few certainties in this world. And that happens to be one of them for right now anyway, that this game of life will end. This is not a dress rehearsal. You got one shot. So if you know it's finite and you choose to accept the fact that it's a gift, one that could end at a moment's notice, then, why not go big? I mean, like, what do you really have to lose, knowing, it's going to be hard and challenging and you're going to require discipline and resilience and all these different things, but why not go big? Why not leave it all out on the field? I can tell you that my biggest fear in life, which is a huge driver for me, is the fear of regret, of me looking back, 40 years from now or 50 or 10, going, man, like, what if I had just like pushed a little harder? What if I had taken that risk? Like, what could I have created? What could I have done for me or my kids or my, team?
Right.
That's a powerful tool.
Yeah.
So I do agree with that sentiment that
so
if you're going to do something,
do it or you
do
don't
it big.
do it. Like,
anything worth doing is worth doing right. So like, just full send and it, regardless of the target you aim for, big or small, you're going to mess it up along the way anyway. For sure, like without question, like you're going to get it wrong countless times. So, I don't know.
Go big. Why not go big? I also kind of wanted to say something about, like, I think I connected with you on LinkedIn originally, and thank you for connecting with me back. I feel like that what we show on LinkedIn, and like, here I am, this architect, and there you are, this warrior. People glamorize like this image of whatever it is, and what's behind it is usually like a really boring, grinding, process. For architects or designers, it's like it's detailing, it's spec writing, it's like drafting. It's like a lot of bureaucratic, administrative things. And actually, in your book, there's a line for just like administrative. Like people forget when they embark on a new project or venture, they focus on like the exciting, sexy things. They don't focus on the boring, like grind of like waking up for you at 5 a.m. to go on your not elliptical, the other machine, and with your baby monitor, and all these like sort of hard moments in life, you know. And I know you have a lot of them, and you talk about it a lot, but I want you actually to talk about how it's maybe in these moments, in these like non-glam moments, that the magic really happens.
Yeah, it's such a good point. I mean, Branka, and the hard truth is there's no getting around it. And in today's world of everyone's looking for the hack, right? Like the super secret method or like thing or
The
like pill or
shortcut.
powder, like whatever you can take that's going to like bypass what you're describing right now. It's a facade. And like I'm all for efficiencies and like new software and like, oh, there's a new supplement that can help do blah blah blah. Like I take advantage of those things as well. But I think when we spend an enormous amount of energy into trying to find the shortcut, it's like if you just took all that right there and applied it to the unsexy work, you'd be miles ahead of where you are right now. So like you're not going to get
Or
around
maybe
it.
just like not, people don't like to lean into like the pain. We're maybe conditioned to
Right.
avoid pain.
We are quite literally programmed to avoid pain. And I talk about this in my book, like the human brain, and this is when I got obsessed with like neurology, when I was trying to figure out like how and why as I was examining myself.
Oh, the
You know, the
Nietzsche.
human brain, like the number one responsibility of the human brain is our survival. That's it. And then there's like a gap of nothing. And then there's like the next most important thing that the brain is paying attention to. So this is very much coded into our DNA is our survival. And like the two primary means that enable that is fear and pain. Those alerts that we have are there specifically to keep us alive longer. So pain is there in the moment as an identifier of there's damage to the system. Whether I put my hand into an open flame and I feel the pain from that, so I jerk it back. Your brain's like, "What are you doing? Get your hand out of the flame because that can really hurt you and it could kill you." And my job is to keep us alive. Emotional pain is also the same thing. You know, like you go through that discomfort, your brain is going to give you all these off ramps to avoid that because it wants us to stay nice and safe and comfortable and predictable and in a place of homeostasis where everything is just nice and safe and repeatable. So literally going outside that goes against biology in many, many different ways. You are fighting yourself, whether it's fear or pain or
Yeah.
discomfort, you're fighting yourself. It's there on purpose. What the challenging part is if you agree with what I'm saying, if you're like, yeah, okay, that makes total sense. Where it gets hard and where neither myself nor you or any other, you know, influencer or coach or mentor can answer this for you is when do I listen to it and when do I ignore it? And that's really hard. But that is the game, is trying to determine those, knowing that you're going to get it wrong at times, meaning you will overextend. Like your body's saying this hurts, stop. And you're like, no, I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep going anyway because growth happens outside the comfort zone and you keep pushing it. And then your leg snaps in half, you know, and they're like, maybe I should have listened to the pain. I don't know. Maybe,
Right.
probably. Or there's times when the same pain happens and you're like, oh, you know what? Like I'm going to throttle back and like, we're going to downshift a little bit because like this trending in a bad direction. What would have happened had you kept going? And of course, there's no way to know. But like those choices that we make countless times a day when we're faced with fear and or discomfort, those are those decisive points. Those are those critical moments. And I'd say most tend to play the more cautious route. Some tend to play more aggressive, but I'd say the true winner of the game are ones that develop a sense of honesty and self-awareness and humility coupled with aggression and aggressiveness and discipline and are able to mold those together quickly as into an operating system to be able to quickly do some risk calculus on this particular scenario right now to hedge the bet a little bit so that you're getting that question right more than you're getting it wrong.
Right, right. One of my friends, she was actually also on my podcast, said like something like convenience will kill us. Also, like we live in the world where we're so spoiled. We we have everything delivered to our doorstep, and including coffee, which I am like, I can't, I can't. And so when there's like a little bit of struggle, people really tend to, you know, shy away. but it's kind of killing them also. But I think we've said enough about that. What I want to talk about is like you from your book. Like one of my like first things, like when I kind of closed the book and I kind of put it away, I was like, I mean, I think this man has a kind of a. I think he's an adrenaline junkie. Uh, and I think you bring a lot of passion into everything. Like even now, like the way you're talking and I think that's wonderful. Do you want to talk about the adrenaline thing? Like, what does it do to you?
Yeah, I would say, admittedly, that would be fair. That is true. It's something that I talk about often when I am kind of going through my reasoning or my whys as to my need to get back into the game after getting injured and losing my leg. And there's kind of a multi-layered answer to that question, but the competitive spirit is certainly part of it. And a love of the game is also a huge part of it. And while I love the things I get to do because I am a bit of an adrenaline junkie, the jumping out of planes and kicking down doors and going into buildings where there are bad guys shooting at me and blowing things up and driving really fast, like I do enjoy those things without question. And that's pretty common with most special operators, is most of us enjoy that high octane, full throttle, lifestyle, or at least like a huge part of our lifestyle, to feed that urge of excitement and adrenaline and like, let's get out there and do the really hard, scary thing. But what I can tell you is, while I do love those things, and that was a part of me wanting to get back to doing what I do, it pales in comparison to the real love of the game that I get to experience, and that's the result of the people I get to do it alongside of. So that's the real passion. That's the real driver for me. Like the love of what I get to do is mostly by virtue of the people. Then there's also the added benefit of I get to do kind of this crazier,
right,
adrenaline fueled stuff at the same time. So.
Well, it's
yeah,
also
it's part
kind
of
of
it.
the stuff that makes you feel alive, like that you're alive and it's life and it's like, it's there. Another thing that I got from the book is that I felt like this man also, like, I think you're really into, well, you have a lot of goals, right? But there's like all these intermediate goals, like you have a ton of certificates and all this special training and, I don't know the terminology, obviously. It's like not my space, obviously. But what I think it's what's beneath that is like this. I think you are constantly learning, and I think you like learning. And I know that you have a degree in criminology and psychology. So maybe you can talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, it's I would stand firm in when I say that humility is perhaps the secret weapon that we're all looking for. Would lie in that character trait, or that skill, really, because it's also both. And if we unpack what it means to be humble, or what humility is, one of the character traits that exists within most people that are humble is they listen, and they're coachable, and they've got this hunger to learn. That just doesn't ever turn off. It just keeps going and going. Well, it's essentially impossible to be striving to learn more if you think you know it all. And those are two opposites of things. So if my ego is like out of control and I'm like, nah, I'm the best at everything, no one can teach me anything about this or anything in general, then the learning ceases to exist. It stops like the minute that you think you are the best or that you're perfect, which is laughable to say out loud, but so humility is a requirement to be able to do that. It's also can be really difficult to actually put into action, to actually humble yourself and be like, oh, you know what? I don't understand this, or I need you to teach me something, particularly when you're in leadership positions or you've got a vast amount of experience and you're kind of expected to know it all, or at least you're expected to know a lot of things because you've been in this industry, let's say for 20 years, like me. I mean, I've been in special operations for just shy of 2 decades. So for me, many of the younger guys that I get to work with, they kind of have this assumption that chief knows everything, and they come to me with questions and my job is to provide guidance. But there are going to be times when I'm like, you know what, dude, like I actually don't know. Let's go find out. That can be difficult to do in that scenario because we may feel like that's going to have us come across as a liability or a weakness to the organization. Like, no, I have to put on this facade that I know everything all the time. And that's not going to really get you very far. So remaining hungry to continue to improve, I would say, is the differentiator between those that reach mastery and really everybody else. And Miyamoto Musashi, who I consider to be a mentor of mine, who's considered to be the greatest samurai warrior ever, you're talking like early 17th century. His probably most well-known work is called The Book of Five Rings. And he talks about like the different domains of human performance as a warrior and as a philosopher and a thinker. And he says very point blankly, actually several times, he's like, the difference between those that are masters and everybody else is masters recognize that the pursuit of mastery is indefinite. So it just goes on forever. And that one recognition, according to Musashi, is what separates the greats from the average, is knowing that if you choose to go down this road of greatness or of mastery, it will never end. You will be a student forever. And the second you stop learning, proactively learning, you now are complete stagnation, right. And you will enter into the realm of average because everyone else is going to take off.
I want to say also from my personal experience, like the minute you stop learning or improving or working, it's not that you're just stagnating, you're actually going backwards.
Exactly.
And I feel like also what you just said, like never stopping, like isn't that like what makes it fun too? Otherwise, like if you knew everything, you'd be done. It'd be over. It'd be boring. So I love that. I love that quote. So what are you learning now? We started with this. You mentioned when we started the discussion, I guess, about the book. You mentioned that you had all these different phases in your life, your professional life as a special operations person in two different incarnations. And I think now you also run this, well, actually, maybe you can talk about it. What is it called? Machine? I want to say machine learning, but it's not machine learning.
So machine is one of our brands. Actually, I'm wearing a shirt that says it right now. Team Machine is kind of a slogan we use.
I actually love the graphics. I noticed that it's very like we spoke about Marcus Aurelius. It looks like a Roman font.
Yeah, it is, and it's not ironic that it draws from that. So, I mean, the Machine brand is our B2C entity with products and services. It's a personal development lifestyle brand, which exists underneath our actual company, Precision Components, which is our service provider, B2B to different organizations for leadership, resilience, performance mindset, wellness. This is the things that we focus on with our clients. What am I learning? It's a great question, and it's a really long list because it keeps getting replenished with more stuff. I think maybe the simplest way to answer this, which also answers the question I get most often, which is like, where do you find the time to do all this stuff, right? So I'm a husband, I'm a father of 2 kids, I'm an active duty Green Beret, I run my own business. Like people that know that or see that, they're like, how do you do all this? And so this answer, I think, answers both of how do I do that? And also where am I still learning? There are really 4 pillars that make up my entire world. And it's my personal wellness and well-being. So that's me investing in me, my physical well-being, my intellect, my emotional well-being, spiritual, mental. That's number 1. And this in it itself can maybe make people scratch their head because I live a life of service. So maybe that sounds selfish, and it's a great discussion to have, but I would argue that it's absolutely essential. It does not mean that I am the most important thing all of the time. It just means that I am the top priority. It doesn't mean that I'm always prioritizing myself, and those are 2 different things. So myself, my family, I have a wife and we have 2 kids. And then my work as a Green Beret, and then my work as a business owner operator, as an entrepreneur. Like those 4 things, that's it. And it's really in that order on purpose.
And an author too. And
which would be part of, some of my business stuff as well. That's like a product that we created as part of our business and what we're doing. So that would fall into that 4th genre
Got it.
Of professional, one of my 2 professions. And what I'm learning is still a whole bunch of stuff within all those areas. I mean, I'm still learning about me, and I've lived a life of relatively, advanced level fitness and training and nutrition where I've got things like calculated and I do all these different things and take care of these different like kind of biohack modalities with the cold tubs and the saunas, but like I'm still learning about that. It's like a never ending journey of like what's the next thing I can add into this system so I can be more operable. I could live longer. I could be healthier, whatever. So that continues to go. One of the more recent event or developments within that is I got into the realm of functional medicine. I work with a practitioner now where my labs are tested and I'm on like these like custom supplements. And so that's fun. And like to your point, Bronca, like I love the game. There's really there are objectives along the way, right? Get to like a, 800-pound deadlift. That would be a goal, but the joy is the journey to the 800. And then once that's hit, it's like, now how do I get to 900? And it just keeps going on and on and on. So it's fun to be playing around with, your own ability to perform and do things. Another thing, and I'll close on this, is I'm still learning how to be a better husband and father. And those three people are the most important part of my whole world. And I think it's very easy for us to begin to take that for granted, whether it's based off of time or just, hey, we've been married 20 years. Like this isn't going anywhere. I think that that's a mistake. I think that for my approach is with my spouse, who I've known now for 15 years, it's like, I want to continue to learn to be better at being a teammate for you in this world that we get to live together. Same as being a dad. So it's just it's a nonstop process.
Relationships are important. Excuse me. And it sets kind of like a scene for pretty much everything else in your life. I also have a daughter, and that's really kind of like the basis of my life, and everything else I do, obviously. You think like I'm wired in a way where when you're an architect, it's like you're really into that. It's not like you kind of just fall into that. You have to you have to go to school. You have to get licensed. And so I was very like focused on that for a big part of my life. But then once I had my daughter, everything changes, right? So
yeah.
I can definitely kind of empathize with that, and relationships in general. It's always something that evolves and something you can learn from. So you mentioned something, how do you do all these things? I follow this woman. I need to mention this. And she is a mother of 7. I'm from Serbia, by the way. And I'm really into like nature and people living in nature. And I kind of grew up, I didn't even grow up, but I spent a lot of time on my grandmother's farm. And I really miss that. I think that we're also very, I don't know that it's healthy for us to just live this way, like in front of computers, with packaged processed food. I think it limits our minds in a lot of ways. And I think especially after COVID, like we've been very limited in our worlds. And I think nature is a remedy for that. And nature, I think, opens us. And, I think also being in nature and working hard physically is important. And a lot of people don't do that anymore. So I follow this woman, and I need to mention this, even though it might sound irrelevant. But this woman is, so she lives in a village. She has a farm. She has cows that she milks with her hands, like with not the machines. She has 7 children, which I'm thinking like, there's probably a set of twins in there. Like 7. I have 1. You have 2. She has 7. And like this woman is, and she's beautiful. She's not like, it's like she's like in a village or anything like that. No, she's fashionable. Like she posts like selfies too, and she's like hot, And she posted this like day in the life. Like she wakes up at 5, like or before. I don't know. I don't remember. By 6, she made breakfast. But this is not breakfast like toast and like go find yourself something to put on it. No. It's like eggs and bacon and pancakes, and the children wake up around 6, and they all eat together, and then they get ready for school, and then she takes them to school, and then she's back, and she does all this stuff by noon on her farm, and then like lunchtime, and it's not a sandwich, it's like stews and potatoes, and it's set for everybody, and then in the afternoon I don't even know what she does, and you watch this clip, and I feel like a loser. I feel like a total loser. But at the same time, I'm like, I gotta get off. Like, I mean, I'm very dynamic and active, and I do a lot of things in my world. But it's also very motivating to like just get off your butt and like start doing things. So it reminded me when you said like I do all these things. You know, I'm a dad. I'm sure you know like you wake up, you have your. I saw the clip with your baby monitor at 5 and actually. If you think about it, like my other friend, the same one that said like convenience will kill us, she also said like time is a construct. You can actually do a lot in a day. You can do a lot even in 2 hours. You can actually like, you can change your life and not a lot of amount of time, so to speak.
Yeah.
So I like that. I like that a lot.
Yeah, it's there's a great quote. I can't tell you who said it. It's probably been regurgitated many times, but it's people tend to overestimate what they can do in a year and underestimate what they can do in a day. And it's spot on. And like to your point, you know, I mean, you only have 24 hours and it goes fast, and there are some things in there that aren't going away, like sleeping and eating and like hygiene and like all these kind of requirements, at least for most of us, most of the time. So, you know, how do you maximize the maybe 8 to 12 hours, give or take, that you have to be like actually productive and create something and filter in a full-time job, which most of us have, then that starts to get narrow really, really fast. And the question is, what are you going to do with it? And that's where it becomes just a series of choices. If you only have 4 hours a day to like develop you and your passion project and you're like whatever, every one of those minutes has to be there has to be an ROI attached to it. And you know, in today's technologically driven world, there's just all of the distractions are around us all the time, and that's where like your focus can be the game changer. Can you, for the next 30 minutes, just do this one thing? Yes or no? And if the answer is no, then why not? Like, what's the problem? Is it because you have like television screens around you, or your phone's going off with all these alerts on someone commented on your
Or
Instagram
Instagram.
post, and it's like, yeah, these things. So like, and I'm not anti-technology. There, you know,
Right.
again, I leverage these
Or
tools every
social
single
media.
day. Social media, the internet, you know, AI. Like I use all these tools, but like with any tool, you choose how you use them, and it can be a means of great success, and you can use them for good, or it can absolutely cripple you, and it becomes an absolute crutch that crushes your productivity. So at the end of the day, it gets back to the same stuff we're talking about. This is discipline, the ability to focus with consistency, and if you can do that, then you're already set up for success compared to most, because most are going to succumb to those distractions. There's another expression where, you know, like yesterday's good is today's great, and like I don't necessarily agree with that in its entirety. There are certainly some skills that like young people have today that are mind blowing to like the earlier generations in like the 50s and 60s, like not even on the same level, but I can understand the sentiment where if you have even just a fraction of what was a requirement as it pertains to discipline and work ethic and consistency, like if you didn't have those things 100 years ago, you were dead, literally dead. And certainly if you didn't have them, you know, 50 years ago, you're not going to really make it all that far in life. Now it's much easier to do a lot of different things. But if you have a fraction of those character traits, man, this is especially with young people, you will dominate everybody around you if you have just a little bit of discipline, work ethic, consistency, mental toughness. You'll
Yeah.
steamroll everyone around you.
Love that. Love that. One of the things I think that is a theme in my life and even this podcast is, you know, all these things you can do in a day, but all these things that you can do in life. And I think, again, I think we're wrongly conditioned to believe that you know, when you grow up, what do you want to be? And it's like this one thing. You can be many things, you know, and here you are in active duty. You're also a thought leader. You're doing all these things. And I think it's important, especially to young people, that, you know, even if you choose a career, there's always ways you can expand on it, you can pivot, you can redefine it, like how you're redefining really even your career professionally, with all of these other things. When did that occur to you? Oh, I don't need to be this one thing, or were you always like this?
I would say that the initial catalyst, or maybe the seed that was planted, that there could be more to me than just a team guy that lived this life of military service, was when I got back to the States after my first deployment as a one-legged guy, and I was really being shoved into this limelight that I wanted nothing to do with. And that was really to kind of highlight what we had collectively accomplished. It had never happened before. And like anything that's never been done before, when it's done, people want to talk about it or promote it or put it out there, share that knowledge. And how did we do this? And I really hated it because I didn't want to be treated any differently than anybody else. I was here to do a job, and this was my job, and this was outside that. So like, leave me alone. And that doesn't really work in the military. You can get ordered to do a lot of different things. So it was like, no, you're going to go do this. But me, by virtue of that, I kind of started to see some of the effect it was having on others. And the internet and social media, the world's gotten really small. So now people can really find almost anyone and ask a question or throw something out there. So that was where the seed was planted. But it took years for that to kind of grow into something of substance. And the next, I'd say, major trigger was something you and I were just talking about, was me on the verge of becoming a dad. And it was like 3 days before my son, my oldest, was born, and I was in the kitchen. It was like 2 a.m.
And you have a picture in your book.
I have a picture of that. Yep, in the book.
I love that actually you integrated that, because people separate also their personal life from their professional life, and it's all one life,
Yeah, and the reason why I put that photograph in there, Branka, is because of the exact thing we're talking about right now. Like, that was a huge catalyst for me, where up until that point, I was a professional warrior. I was a war fighter. Like, that's it. And that was not only what I did, but it was who I was. Like, my whole purpose, my entire being was in that one function, which I used to get back into the game. That was a huge driver for me. But on the verge of becoming a dad, it was like, well, wait a minute. This can't be like the only thing you are. I mean, it will forever be a huge part of who you are, but there has to be more than this. And that was a big jump as well. So I just think, to your point, man, especially talking to like younger people, it's going to change. And we can fall into this paralysis by analysis state and just stay in this like constant state of, I need to like learn more and figure out what perfect is and get on this exact trajectory. And, like, perfection is the enemy of progress. It's going to change no matter what. So make a choice, plant a stake as a beacon in the future, and then most importantly, get to work and stop moving towards that. And throughout that process, other opportunities are going to come. You're going to learn more about yourself or the environment or the thing or the task, or the curiosity will drive you into another direction. That's great. That's the game of life, man. So don't overthink it. Put in a little thought, get relatively close on azimuth, and then plant a flag and start going after it.
I love that. And a lot of times when we're not quite or not totally in control, magical things unfold, so to speak. So sometimes, like, if we just do things, I feel I like control, actually, I gotta say. As an architect too, like, we like precision and control and planning. But there's something about also leaving it to others and seeing what happens too, or leaving it to the universe, so to speak. So others, you said, and actually, like, a big moment in the book for me was when you were explaining sort of what was going on in your mind, and how, like, when you were injured, the things like you were obviously trying to do to yourself to survive, like by cutting off your, like tying things, but at the same time, you're thinking about how to help others. I think that was a very powerful, like, I guess, mental image for me, the way I was imagining it. Like, you're literally fighting for your life, and you're thinking about your comrades or, others that are with you, and trying to help them. Is that possible? How is that possible?
Well, I mean, it's definitely possible. And I think you can find that within, probably any industry or most industries or lifestyles, but certainly when you exist in the realm I get to be a part of, small team environment where you are literally relying on each other for your survival over and over and over again in all different places in the world within different operational environments with different threats. And that's just the way you live. It's you and 10 or 11 other guys, and that's it. Um, and I think that enables that and kind of that like brotherhood and sense of camaraderie and love you have for each other. You realize that is how you win as a team. And this philosophy is one that when we're teaching leadership, even corporate or athletes, like this transcends into all those different spaces because you're talking about creating an emotional connection to another human being, and that's it. It's a bond. Exactly. Sure. Mm-hmm. Exactly. Exactly. And if I think it's kind of easy to say this way, but if it works for us, it'll work for you. And that's like not a condescending thing to say. It may sound that, but it's not coming from a place of arrogance. But if this like methodology works with these like the extreme environments, then surely it can work within an environment that's less extreme. And that's just kind of, I'd say, basic common sense. It's true, So part of what we do is take this like kind of these like holy shit scenarios where people have a really hard time putting themselves in that situation. And it's like, you don't need to put yourself in that situation. You need to keep yourself in your situation, right? You're in, but the theme applies, and here's how it works. And when you work with an organization that starts to own these kind of concepts and put them into action tactically, and you watch them evolve as a team, that's incredibly fulfilling. And those light bulbs start to go off where it's like, oh man, like I don't need to be a Green Beret for these things to work. And it's like, no, that's exactly the point. That's why we're here is to demonstrate this for you guys. So yeah, it's not only possible. I would also then argue that it is essential to have that kind of team cohesion and bond and trust and respect and empathy and compassion with each other to win. Well, first off, your 11-year-old is dropping some knowledge bombs in this early stage of life. How old was she when she said that? Was that a recent thing? Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's blowing my mind. I'll probably spend the next like day trying to figure out what's her name? Your daughter? Nika. I'll be trying to figure out how Nika came to that conclusion. That's fantastic, and actually quite insightful. Um, yeah, I mean, conflict, because war is also, and I don't want to get too like specific, but there is a difference between war and conflict. And, this is the nature of our government and what it says on a piece of paper. There is a difference. Technically for the last 20 years, we've been in conflict, actually multiple conflicts, versus like a declaration of war. And that's just semantics, really.
Semantics, yes, yes.
Without going into the minutia of that, like
or
war
politics.
to me or conflict, it's more political.
Of it either, but I think conceptually.
But like conflict amongst two humans and or amongst two groups of humans or multiple groups of humans is rooted in our survival instincts, and the human nature is still a part of us all, and we have policies and protocols and all these different things that are there to kind of give us a more of an objective or logical way of deciding what we're going to do versus it being emotionally based. Like, this person just made me angry, I'm going to go punch him in the face or like drop a bunch of missiles on them. So we've got these like systems and processes in place that mitigate that from happening. Whether it's like the president of the United States who's like, what'd that person just say about me? And just hits a red button and like eviscerates a country. Like, that's it. There's more to it than what we can do. So to be able to make an emotional reaction towards something or an emotional response is severely mitigated because of all this stuff we have. But I think that human nature still applies. And, people are greedy and people want more authority and more control and more things that are sparkly or more gold or money or clothing or land. And that's like human nature, which extends beyond survival. But they're also kind of closely aligned because, hey, if I'm just here purely to survive and thrive in my own little bubble, I need to make sure that every entity around me doesn't just like overpower me. So I have to get offensive at some point. Like, a good offense is the best defense. Like, I have to get proactive. I can't just sit here in my little cocoon and let every other entity around me get bigger and stronger because they will engulf me. So I have to get out there and be aggressive towards whether that's land or resources. So conflict is inevitable when it comes to that. And we are advancing quite a bit in what conflict means now, because it's no longer solely wielding a spear or a sword and swinging it into somebody's face. It's also no longer bullets coming out of a gun, shooting directly at somebody, or launching missiles from one location to another location thousands of miles away. We have all these other means of quote unquote conflict in order to create an effect on another group. And we can wield economic power, we can wield information power. So it's a new game, and it's not all brand new as of this moment. This has been an evolution. But I think that the bottom line is it's not going away. I do think that we will slowly continue to see more influence into our opposition's realm by virtue of non-direct combat scenarios over time, because very few people actually want that. Like, I'd rather keep my people safe and keep your people safe. Let's like mess with each other through these other ways, which can of course have an actual direct effect on.
Like a video game.
Well, yeah, maybe that's a way to look at it. It's a way to look at it.
Yeah,
but
who wins in the video game wins.
I think it's an unfortunate reality that is likely not going away for as long as human beings are emotional creatures, which we are. Dale Carnegie says it best: when you're dealing with a human being, you're not dealing with a creature of logic, you're dealing with a creature of emotion. And that's a fact. And it's the number one thing that makes us the most dominant species on the planet. And it's also the number one thing that makes us most vulnerable, is being an emotionally charged entity. So war, conflict, combat, it's not going away, in my opinion. It's going to look and feel different tomorrow than it did yesterday. And that's the unfortunate nature.
Interesting. Interesting. Throughout this, conversation, you mentioned a number of people and quotes. Who are some of your, top mentors, like either people that have worked with you or you've read their books or whatever, that you feel like you've got like some life changing lessons and materials?
Yeah. Man, there's a bunch. Jesus would be one of them. I'm a Christian,
Uh-huh.
so there's that. The work from the Bible. Marcus Aurelius is one we've already mentioned. Miyamoto Musashi is another one we've already mentioned. Hector of Troy, who was the Prince of Troy. If you've seen the movie with Brad Pitt, Eric Bana, I can't mess his name up. He plays Prince Hector. Kind of gets a bad rap in the movie. Like he
Mm-hmm.
gets killed, and he does get killed in Greek mythology, but he was also just an amazing human being. Really went against the grain quite a bit back in those days on his loyalty to his wife and how he behaved as a father and as a leader. He was more of a revolutionary compared to how most of those people at that time would live in that with that kind of prominence. So just a very integrity driven, true savage warrior was Prince Hector. Jocko Willink is another amazing mentor of mine. He's the one out of those that I've listed that's actually still alive.
Actually, in preparation for this, I listened to your 5 hour conversation.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Yeah. It's very
Yeah, he's great.
biographical.
And
Yeah, yeah,
I
absolutely.
learn a lot from him. It's wild that I've been a student of his work, considered him a mentor now for many, many years. And
Love
that I
that.
get to
He's
call him a
based down here
colleague
in
and a friend
San
is
Diego,
crazy.
I hear.
Yeah. Yeah, he
Yeah.
is. So yeah, those are maybe the top 4 or 5 that come to mind. But there's a bunch. There's a bunch.
I love that. What are you reading right now that's that you'd like to share?
I just got done reading. It's a business book called Profit First by a guy named Mike Menskowitz. I can't pronounce his last name. It's like 15 miles long. It's a business book. It's like if you're not into business and like entrepreneurship, you could probably use it for your own personal finances. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, but I just got done reading that, and then the next one I got teed up is actually another book about business called Traction, which is part of this like EOS entrepreneur operating system like community. So I've been doing quite a bit of like business reading and research lately. I'm in year 4 of this, and I have miles of stuff to figure out
I've been
still.
practicing
So
on my own for about 8 years, and I really I feel like I'm just starting. I
yeah,
know that
that's probably true.
and prior to working for other companies, but I feel like I just started like a lot of things. I think that's awesome. Can you tell me a little bit more about like what your I guess business goals are, really, with your like machine operations and all of that?
Yeah, so I mean, the vision of Precision Components, which is the name of our company, is leaders of impact, and we look to really kind of, I'll use the word disrupt, but take that approach to another level of creating impact, like an impact first business model. And we're very much in business, and I'm a capitalist through and through, but to prioritize impact authentically, and that not only includes what we do externally with our clients, but the people that we work alongside of. I think in today's world, there's a lot of garbage that's very easily to be consumed. And there's a huge focus on marketing and captivating content and promotions and advertisement. And I get it. And nowadays, like anyone can really get out there and be captivating, and people are glued to these devices. And I think there's also a lot of charlatans and manipulative, self-centered people out there that are
And there's a
pitching
lot of
this
shallowness
influence.
in our culture to begin with. When I started this podcast, it was a little bit like, oh, I feel like let's do a podcast about like what are people doing? What are people creating? Instead of like another, like a makeup tutorial on how to apply like mascara and contour your face. So I totally agree. There's a lot of
Yeah.
shallowness in our culture.
Like teach their own. If you want to create a whole channel and thing on putting on eye makeup because you're passionate about it, like good for
Go
you,
for
right?
it,
Like
but
go for it.
I'm not hating. But in order to change that, maybe don't critique, but critique by creating.
Yeah, I just think that there's that with the 24-hour cycle of content and creators and offerings and products, and it can be overwhelming really fast, like almost too many options on where do I go. The 19-year-old kid that wants to be better at life has a billion different things being shoved in his or her face, and it really becomes which one's most convincing versus which one actually provides the real value to the end user. And taking that approach from a business model and strategy perspective, we're going to authentically care. That's where we're going to invest the majority of our resources against. Internal and external is genuinely caring and being really good at the things that we do, and putting the glam and the marketing as a secondary investment. Now, that may be a mistake from a business approach, but it's one that I believe in, and I can sleep sound at night knowing that while we're building on this glide path that's exploding and the numbers are speaking for themselves by going this route, I would rather be able to sleep at night knowing I'm doing an actual legitimate service to an end user, and maybe more importantly, my kids and my close circle, the way that they see how I function and what matters to me. Like, I'm willing to make less money to do the right thing.
Right,
And
but
we're
I
going to
think it
stand by
also
that.
goes back to your core values and your ethics as a human being in what you're doing. I also noticed there's a huge educational component to what you're doing, and I'm really into that. I also, other than my architecture practice / business, if you want to say it that way, I also record courses about architecture and design and how
cool.
people can level up their game if they are creative and that sort of thing. So, and that also is how I kind of give back to my profession, etc. So I think it's like, in some ways, it's like similar and parallel. So I noticed, and it caught my eye, because I didn't quite understand originally what machine operations was. I thought it was like some kind of training program. But I think a lot of it is educational. And on your Instagram, there's all kinds of topics that you cover, including understanding finances, understanding supplements, mental well-being. So it's like this microcosm of self-improvement and betterment and leveling up. And I think it's actually quite relevant even for somebody like me, even though I'm not like a bro, at the gym or a man. I think it's actually very relevant to a lot of people.
Yeah, it's. I'm glad you mentioned that. So our coaching and community platform is called, we call it the Forge, and it's what you're talking right now. And we really dove into how do we model this out, and what we came up with is this kind of whole of person approach to personal development. And we created these 6 domains, and we've got all of our products and our instructors and our coaches that all operate within these domains. And it's physical, mental, social, and those ones are pretty common, and you see that quite often. Physical improvement, bigger, faster, stronger, healthier, longevity, mental performance and mental strength and mental health, be able to focus and deal with any kind of emotional challenge. And then social, as we've talked about, interacting with each other. And then the other 3 are a little bit more unique to what we do, where you've got leadership, preparedness, so one's ability to be self-reliant and ready for the world, and then finance. And that really gets down into the technical, or almost the tactical. And that's, can get easily overlooked, because if you're struggling to put food on the table for yourself or your kids, well, it's going to be really hard to be able to run 5 miles in 35 minutes, because you're going to be just stressed to them. That's going to be your focus. Like, how well can you really be mentally if you're living paycheck to paycheck over what you can do, and you've got hungry mouths to feed, or you don't know if you're going to be able to afford your rent or your mortgage?
I really like that you're doing it in a sort of holistic way. I think it's also vice versa. If I really enjoy fitness, and I feel that, especially like as a mom, like you need to be strong. You need to be strong.
Yes.
Also, you got to be, the stronger you are, the harder to kill, from your book.
True.
But in order to do all these things, like to carry your child, like when my daughter was born, I had like back problems from like carrying like this infant on my hip, just on one, and so my spine was like wonked out, and I did like physical therapy, but I was so weak because I did, like all my life I did like I don't know, yoga and like running and swimming, a little swimming, not a lot of like weight training. And since then, I have done weight training, but like I feel like I'm stronger now than I was in my 20s or 30s, you know, like, and I'm 43 now, proudly. But you know, like, now she's 11, I can carry her up the hill. She's almost as big as me. Like you know, they're kind of like lazy. They don't like to walk. So I carry her literally. But what does that mean? Like you have to have strength in order to be a parent, to do your job, to go to work, to be a resource for your community, to come up with cool, fun, stimulating, interesting, inspiring ideas. All of these things, you actually have to have a strong body too.
Yeah, that's
and
it.
That's something
You only
that,
got one vessel.
Maybe
You got
creatives
one
and
vessel.
intellectuals, they don't like necessarily think about that or that it's important, but it is, you know.
Right. And no one's saying you need to look like a Greek Adonis or be able to, you know, back squat 600 pounds.
It doesn't hurt.
No, it doesn't hurt,
either.
but being healthy and being strong is relative to you. It's not,
Yeah,
people
totally.
look at me and they're like, I don't want to look like that, or like, I don't need to be able to do those things. And that's great. That's fine. I agree. But I would take your argument as well and say, you may not need to look like me or do what I can do physically, but you do need to be strong physically. You need to be physically strong and capable and to be able to do this thing called life for an extended period of time. Otherwise, if you're dead, you're not providing value to anybody. You're not drawing the cool thing on the billboard if you are laid up in the hospital because you have neglected your health and you're sick. And now all of a sudden, every other priority in the world is irrelevant because your health has taken number one. Like, health is wealth. And that's a very cliche thing to say,
Absolutely.
but there's a reason why we hear it so often, because it's true.
And I think also like there is a huge link between physical activity and athleticism and mental well-being, and therefore cognitive achievement.
100%. Absolutely.
Yeah, you know, there's I'm translating from Serbian now. You know, you have to have a sane body, actually a sane mind and a strong body, or you know what the ancient saying goes. How does somebody get into the Forge to learn these things? And is it like, what format is it? I feel like it's like online.
Yeah, so it's virtually based. You get through it through our website, which is teammachine.com. Machine is MCHN, and then the landing page exists off of that. It's members only, so it's exclusive, and people can come and go as they please. And you sign up, and then boom, you've got access to our it's a white glove. We built it portal that's got all of our coaches, or what we call subject matter experts. There's about 24 of them in there now that are all in there daily, answering questions and doing classes and throwing out virtual content. And then we do right now, I want to say we average about 3 live virtual engagements a week. So we're pumping out the interactive stuff on a regular basis. Most platforms, like a weekly call, would be pretty standard. We wanted to triple that with a variety of different entities that are providing value in from different angles.
I would love to talk to you offline about like filming a course, actually.
Cool, because we do that as well. We're in the process of putting together, I think, 4 different kind of like master classes that'll exist on the platform.
I love that. I think that's awesome.
Thank you.
And I actually like the idea of workshops too, and live events. I think that's really important and cool. So I'll definitely check that out.
Cool.
Well, thank you so much, Nick. We are a little over time. I mean, I feel like I can talk to you forever, honestly.
We could have easily. This was great.
This is so inspiring. This is such a dream come true. Thank you so much. I hope we can do this again sometime. If you're ever in LA, let's do a live event.
Yeah, let's do it.
And yeah, awesome. I really hope we can stay in touch. I would love to send you a book on architecture. And one thing actually we didn't talk about, and I think there's probably a few, but that I remember, one of the books I want to send you is on tattoo design. And I noticed you have a lot of tattoos, and we didn't get
Yeah.
a chance to talk about that. But anyways, thank you so much for this opportunity. We are very honored to have you as a guest here on my podcast. And yeah, I guess all the best, and hope we can continue this very soon.
I'll be looking forward to the next one, Branka. Thank you.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you, Nick.